Apple has revealed its biggest iPad yet. It's called the iPad Pro. It measures 12.9 inches, and there's an optional Apple Pencil stylus you can get with it if you like. But is this new kind of iPad a waste of time, or is it a brilliant reinvigoration of the tablet? We're going to talk about that now, and with me is my colleague Rich Trenholm. Hello, Rich.
Hello.
Now, you are cautiously optimistic about the iPad Pro.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's got kind of an interesting idea, even if it might be more of a marketing exercise than anything else. But
what do you mean by marketing exercise?
Well, so the thing is, bring your own device is a trend that's been around for a little while, and that's basically the idea of bringing your smartphone to work or your tablet and having your work email on there, and it's not separated at all. And that's been causing a bit of tension with IT departments. So I think in terms of marketing, what is quite a sensible thing to do is to make a device and put the word Pro on the end, and even though it's basically still the same thing, you've convinced IT departments around the world that this is a business device for business people to do business things on.
So you're suggesting that this is the device that's going to convince big corporations with millions of employees to gadgetize
Potentially.
that the iPad is
Potentially.
could work.
It is basically the same as an iPad or a phone, but just by making it look slightly different and giving it this new twist. It's like the emperor's new clothes, but that is sort of has always been Apple's raison d'etre. In fact, they'd probably claim they wrote the emperor's new clothes. They'd be like, Hans Christian who?
Who?
We wrote it.
What? Who?
Yeah, exactly. We invented that.
No. Johnny Ive wrote that.
Yes, exactly.
It's fact. I think that what you were saying about it essentially being the same thing, despite the fact it has Pro on the end, could be the biggest problem with it, because it's definitely being presented as like, here is an iPad that you can do a lot more with. It's sort of the next step up. It's sort of between your iPad and your MacBook, creating even more subdivisions of categories between smartphones and MacBook, which incidentally feels very un-Apple, creating more categories and more slices of different kinds of technology. It feels a little bit like what Apple was doing in the 90s, where it split the Mac line up into many options and different lines and stuff, and it all got a bit confusing and frankly rubbish. So I wonder, are they smart to create something that is essentially still an iPad, because it doesn't give you that much different to like a normal size regular iPad? I mean, you can do split screen apps, right, stuff like that, so multitasking gets a bit more powerful, but I don't know, I think if you bought this thing expecting it to replace your computer, I think you'd be as disappointed as all the people who bought iPads expecting it to do that were.
Possibly, yeah. I mean, I think the multitasking thing is quite interesting. The idea of having two apps side by side is fantastic, and I've certainly gone over to having a larger phone. I have a 6-inch phone now, and I know I couldn't live without having a smaller phone now, because it's just there's so much extra stuff on the screen. But one thing that is missing is having two apps next to each other, because I find it really annoying when you're on your phone and you're constantly having to tab back between two things, you know, Alt Tab, and the kind of the equivalent of that, switching between two apps and copying and pasting and that kind of thing. So I love the idea of having these two things side by side, and I think you have to have that if you're realistically going to use it for work.
If it's that important to me that I can see two things at once, why am I not just doing this on a laptop? Because the laptop is so good, and Apple makes such incredible laptops. Like, we both use MacBook Airs in our sort of day-to-day working life, and it's brilliant. And we're at a point now where it's not going to be that much difference in price between a MacBook Air and the iPad Pro. And I just wonder, is this an evolution of the iPad too far? Like, they're making it so much like the MacBook that I just think, just buy the MacBook. It just seems to me so obviously a better device.
It does come with the option of the attachable keyboard, but if you're going to attach a keyboard to a massive unwieldy tablet, you might as well, like you say, just get a MacBook Air.
When Steve Jobs initially revealed the iPad, he sort of used it to have a go at netbooks, and there was a big on-screen graphic which had like smartphones and laptops, and then in the middle there was like, I think it was a big question mark, and into it dropped the word iPad, and it was like, ta-da! Yes, yeah. But I think we can probably safely say a few years later that that tablets haven't really provided a whole new categories we thought they would, because smartphones get bigger and they sort of eat into what tablets can do from that side, while laptops have got a lot smaller and lighter and, you know, consistently more powerful. And this feels to me a bit desperate. We know that Apple's had trouble in recent years with the iPad in terms of keeping sales growth high. And so something about this feels not new and aggressive, and like, would you buy it if it had a keyboard? So apparently you like a keyboard. Do you like keyboards? What do you like? Tell us what you like and we'll make
Keyboards, pens, pencils, the whole
anything,
thing.
whatever you want.
A tablet that's huge, the size of a briefcase. I think if anything, this sort of seems like Apple is desperate to try and find new niches,
right.
And this seems to be trying to expand into a market that it hasn't been able to conquer before. The idea of a tablet you can draw on is something that Wacom has been doing for artists and graphic designers and that kind of thing for a long time, and they've pretty much cornered the market.
Yeah.
And so for Apple to be looking around and to suddenly go, well, you know, maybe we can try and take some money off Wacom, then that feels like they're getting into this sort of this niche, this kind of cul-de-sac.
But I mean, who wants to take money off Wacom? How much money can that be? You know,
they have always gone into areas where there is, you know, people doing this technology, but not doing it in as a kind of user-friendly way as Apple could. So Apple comes along and they take MP3s, or they take digital music. They took internet-enabled phones, and they said, right, how's everyone? There's a bunch of other people doing it, but they're not doing it particularly well. Let's do this really, really well.
On the one hand, it doesn't feel particularly innovative. But then on the other hand, that feels like a criticism that we make of lots of Apple kit that then turns out to be explosively popular.
Sure.
When you're saying, why would they do this when Wacom already does it so well? Like, that's something that you could have been saying about the iPhone, like, why are they doing this when BlackBerry does it so well? And yet, I can't shake this nagging feeling that maybe this time things are different and the rules don't apply, and that maybe this one is just a bit uninspiring. Let's talk about the I'm not going to say the pencil, I'm going to say the stylus.
Okay.
Because when we talk about Samsung things, we rarely say S Pen, and I feel we should, in the interest of balance, we shouldn't give Apple its silly marketing name either. Let's talk about the stylus.
Absolutely.
What do you think of that?
Well, I mean, Steve Jobs did famously say, didn't he, that if you see a stylus, they've messed up. So,
yeah, like you failed on the interface level.
Exactly,
or
yeah.
Like that.
So I'm on board with pencils generally, pens, Apple pencils, styluses, whatever you want to
They've
call
already
them.
got to you. I'm on board with pencils generally.
Yeah.
The day the pencil died.
Exactly, and I mean, and Apple did say as well that your perfect pointing implement is your finger. But the thing is, the most important thing is about what's inside. It doesn't really matter what it looks like. Can you really draw with it? Can you use it to create a professional quality design in some way? If you're a designer, if you're a comic artist, if you're an artist, can you actually use this thing to create this sort of the nuance and the subtlety that you need in your drawings? Are you going to have those levels of pressure? Are you going to be able to vary the thickness of your lines? Those kind of real kind of detail, and I'm not entirely sure that Apple can do it. But having said that, there's going to be a lot of people who maybe aren't necessarily professional artists or designers, but they do have elements of design in their work, and they can look professional because they've got this ridiculous big pro tablet.
Yeah.
But they can also look cool because they're kind of drawing and sketching and that kind of thing. So, I think maybe that's where the cool factor will come in.
Okay, no, that's an interesting idea. It could be cool in a different, slightly non-traditional sort of way.
Exactly.
Okay, all right. Well, folks, that's what we think about the iPad Pro, but what do you think of Apple's latest tablet? Let us know, and do stay tuned to CNET.com for much, much more.